At 0647 hours on February 14, 1943, Captain Karl Ahrens sat at 23,000 feet over Gafsa, Tunisia, watching three Messerschmitt Bf 109 seconds climb to intercept his route home. His F-5A Lightning photo reconnaissance variant, stripped of most armament, carried 6 camera magazines full of German position photos, intelligence that could save 1,000 infantry lives. Fuel gauge showed 40%. No fighter escort. Nearest friendly airfield 85 miles northwest. The Bf 109 seconds were positioning perfectly, climbing to altitude between Ahrens and safety. Standard doctrine was absolute: avoid combat, use your speed advantage, run, evade, survive, get the photos home. Dead reconnaissance pilots deliver no intelligence. Ahrens had followed that doctrine on his first 4 missions. Watched German fighters position themselves like chess pieces. Turned away from direct routes home. Extended evasion patterns. Burned fuel-dodging threats. Landed with warning lights flashing and engines coughing on fumes. Every reconnaissance pilot flew the same way. The manual was clear. Your aircraft has limited armament. 4 50 caliber machine guns. 800 rounds total. Not enough to win dogfights. Enough to get yourself killed trying. So you ran. Except running wasn't working. 37 Allied reconnaissance aircraft lost between January and March. 37 pilots who followed doctrine perfectly, who evaded, who extended, who tried to outrun German fighters, all dead anyway. Ahrens watched the 3 Bf 109 seconds reach 21,000 feet. Still climbing. Another 2 minutes they'd be at his altitude. Perfect position. He could turn south right now. Start the evasion pattern. Burn fuel for 20 minutes trying to shake them. Maybe make it home with 8% fuel remaining. Maybe. Or he could do something the Germans wouldn't expect. His hand moved to the throttle. Not pulling back to turn away. Pushing forward to accelerate toward the threat. What happened in the next 4 minutes would prove that the deadliest weapon in a reconnaissance aircraft wasn't the camera. Section 2. The problem statement. 450 words. Between January and March 1943, Allied photo reconnaissance units in North Africa faced a crisis that command couldn't solve with doctrine or discipline. 41% loss rate. Nearly half of all reconnaissance missions ended with aircraft shot down, pilots killed, intelligence photos never delivered. The numbers were precise and brutal. 37 aircraft destroyed. 37 pilots dead. Thousands of photographs that could have guided artillery strikes, identified German positions, and saved Allied infantry lives lost with the pilots who carried them. The reconnaissance mission was critical to Allied operations. Photo reconnaissance aircraft flew deep into enemy territory. Solo missions. No escort. Just 1 pilot, 1 aircraft, and cameras that captured German troop movements, supply dumps, artillery positions, airfield layouts. The photos went to intelligence officers, who turned them into targeting data. Data that saved lives on the ground. But getting those photos required specialized aircraft. Reconnaissance Lightnings were stripped down, lighter, faster, built for speed and altitude, not combat. Most armament removed. Camera equipment installed 3 K-17 cameras mounted in the nose, capable of overlapping coverage from 25,000 feet. The doctrine for flying these missions was absolute. Avoid combat at all costs. Your aircraft has superior speed. Use it. Your aircraft can reach higher altitude than most German fighters. Use that too. Never engage enemy fighters. Never attempt to fight. Your job is photography, not air combat. Dead pilots deliver no intelligence. The logic was sound. The execution was failing. German fighter controllers had learned the Allied playbook. They'd studied reconnaissance patterns, figured out the routes, the altitudes, the procedures, and they'd developed a counter-tactic that was killing Allied pilots at rates command couldn't sustain. German fighters positioned themselves between reconnaissance aircraft and their home bases. They didn't chase immediately. They waited at altitude. Let the recon pilot see them. Watch the Allied aircraft turn away to evade. Then they followed, not aggressively, patiently, forcing the reconnaissance pilot to burn fuel, maintaining evasion patterns. 20 minutes of evasion. 30 minutes. The Allied pilot would check his fuel gauge, see the needle dropping toward critical levels, realize he couldn't evade anymore, couldn't maintain altitude, couldn't outrun fighters when his tanks were nearly empty. That's when the Germans attacked. When the Allied pilot had no options left except surrender or die. The pattern repeated with mechanical precision. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, January 14th. Shot down 47 miles from base. Fuel critical. Captain David Chen, January 29th. Crashed, attempting emergency landing after running out of fuel during evasion. Lieutenant Robert Morrison, February 3rd. Caught by BF 109 seconds after 32 minutes of evasion, tanks nearly dry. All three followed Doctrine perfectly. Avoided combat. Used speed and altitude advantages. Evaded enemy fighters according to training. All three died anyway. Command kept issuing the same orders. Avoid engagement. Run if threatened. The orders might as well have said, give up and die slowly. Section 3. Meet Karl Ahrens, 550 words. Captain Karl Ahrens was 27 years old when they reassigned him to reconnaissance duty. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Crop duster before the war. 1,400 civilian flight hours, buzzing wheat fields and dodging power lines in beat-up Stearman biplanes. The kind of flying that taught you to trust your instincts and never hesitate when decisions needed making. He enlisted 3 days after Pearl Harbor. December 10th, 1941. Fighter pilot training. Graduated 4th in his class. Posted to the 49th Fighter Squadron in January 1943. Just as the North African campaign was heating up after the disaster at Kasserine Pass. Ahrens flew 5 combat missions in the P-38 Lightning fighter variant. Aggressive flying style. Borderline reckless, according to his squadron commander. 2 confirmed kills, both BF 109 seconds, shot down in combat over Tunisia. He had the instincts, knew when to attack, when to break off, how to read enemy formations. Then came Kasserine Pass, February 4th through 6th, 1943. The German offensive tore through American lines. The 49th Fighter Squadron flew constant sorties trying to slow the advance. On February 6th, Ahrens watched his squadron get shredded. 18 pilots took off that morning. 4 came back. Ahrens survived. 14 squadron mates didn't. The reassignment orders came 3 days later. Report to 7th Photo Reconnaissance Group. Effective immediately. Ahrens read those orders and felt declawed. Felt like punishment for surviving when better pilots died. Fighter pilots fought. Reconnaissance pilots took pictures and ran away. That's how it felt. Like being told he wasn't good enough for real combat anymore. The first reconnaissance briefing was February 8th, 1943. The commander was direct. Your job is photography, not fighting. You're flying intelligence missions. Solo, deep penetration. Your aircraft is a flying camera platform. The F-5A Lightning looked like the fighter variant Ahrens knew. Twin boom design. Twin engines. But stripped down, modified. The standard P-38 carried one 20mm cannon and 4 50-caliber machine guns. The F-5A Recon variant had only 4 50 calibers, 200 rounds per gun, 800 rounds total. The 20mm cannon removed. The weight saved went to camera equipment. 3K-17 cameras mounted in the nose where the cannon used to be. Lighter aircraft. Faster than the fighter variant. Better fuel efficiency. Longer range. Could reach 27,000 feet and cruise at 320 miles per hour. On paper, superior to the fighter version in speed and altitude performance. But in combat, having 4 guns instead of 5 felt like going into battle with one arm tied behind your back. The commander continued the briefing. Your mission is getting photographs home, not killing Germans. If you encounter enemy fighters, evade. Use your speed. Use your altitude. Do not engage. We've lost too many pilots who tried to fight when they should have run. That night, Ahrens couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about those 14 pilots from his fighter squadron, kept seeing their empty bunks, kept wondering if the reconnaissance pilots who died, Webb, Chen, Morrison, had felt the same helplessness. He requested access to their mission reports, studied them past midnight. Same pattern in every case. German fighters intercepted. Recon pilot evaded. Germans followed patiently. Fuel ran critical. Germans attacked. Pilot died. The realization hit him around 0200 hours. Running wasn't working. Standard Doctrine was killing Allied pilots as efficiently as German bullets. Something had to change. February 10th, 1943, 0615 hours. Ahrens walked across the flight line at Telept Airfield toward his assigned F-5A Lightning, serial number 42212668. The aircraft sat alone on the hardstand, morning sun glinting off polished aluminum. No other planes nearby. Reconnaissance pilots flew solo, always. The crew chief, Sergeant Frank Murphy, was finishing pre-flight checks. Cameras loaded, sir. Film magazines good for 200 exposures. Fuel tanks topped off. 450s, 200 rounds each. She's ready. Ahrens climbed into the cockpit. The smell of aviation fuel and hydraulic fluid filled his nose. Same smells as the fighter variant, but the nose looked wrong without the 20mm cannon. Just camera ports where the gun should be. Made the whole aircraft feel naked. Mission briefing had been simple. Photograph German positions at Kasserine Pass, the site where his squadron got decimated 6 days earlier. Intelligence wanted detailed coverage of enemy artillery emplacements. The photos would guide counter-battery fire. Route: Telept to Kasserine, 140 miles into territory the Germans now controlled. Fly the photo run. Get home. Expected flight time: 2 hours. Weather forecast: clear skies, visibility unlimited, no cloud cover to hide in. Wind from the northwest at 15 knots. Expected resistance: moderate to high. Translation: German fighters would be waiting. Ahrens started engines at 0625. Port engine first, then starboard. The Allison Vone, 710 seconds, rumbled to life. He ran through the checklist mechanically. Oil pressure good, fuel pressure good, generators online, radio check with tower, cleared for takeoff at 0630. Rolled down the runway, lifted off, climbed northwest toward Kasserine. Reached 26,000 feet by 0650. Cruise speed 280 miles per hour. The morning air was smooth, cold, clear. Perfect conditions for photography. Perfect conditions for getting killed. The flight out was uneventful. 45 minutes of nothing but engine noise and his own breathing in the oxygen mask. He watched the landscape below. Desert, mountains, the occasional road. Somewhere down there, German and American forces were killing each other over worthless terrain that mattered only because someone drew a line on a map. 0715 hours. Kasserine Pass visible ahead. Ahrens started his photo run. Straight and level flight, 26,000 feet. The cameras were automatic once activated. One exposure every 3 seconds. Overlapping coverage. He just had to fly steady while the cameras did their work. The German artillery positions were clearly visible. He counted 17 gun emplacements, ammunition dumps, command posts, vehicle parks. The cameras captured everything. Photo run completed at 0722. 147 exposures. Perfect coverage. Mission accomplished. Now the hard part. Getting home. Ahrens turned northwest, back toward Telepta. 60 miles from friendly airspace. That's when he saw them. 4 BF 109 seconds at 28,000 feet, 8 miles ahead, positioning perfectly between him and home base. They'd been waiting, listening to German radar tracking. Knew exactly where he'd be and when. Now they had altitude advantage and position advantage. Textbook intercept. His fuel gauge showed 55%. Plenty to reach home if he flew direct. But he couldn't fly direct anymore. The Germans began their dive. Coming down from altitude. Not rushing. Patient. They knew what happened next. They'd done this dozens of times. Ahrens followed Doctrine. Turned south, away from the direct route home. Pushed throttles forward. Built speed to 320 miles per hour. Started evasion pattern. The Bf 109 seconds adjusted course. Following him, not attacking yet, just following, forcing him to burn fuel, maintaining high speed. 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes. Ahrens checked fuel. Down to 40%. He'd burned 15% in 10 minutes of evasion. Math said he had maybe 20 more minutes before fuel became critical. The Germans knew it too. They stayed at altitude. Shadowing him. Waiting. 15 minutes. Fuel at 32%. Warning light flickering. Ahrens turned. East. The Germans turned east. Turned north. Germans turned north. Every direction he went, they followed. Herding him. Burning his fuel. 18 minutes of evasion. Fuel at 25%. Warning light steady now. He was 75 miles from Telept. 45 miles from any friendly position. The numbers didn't work anymore. The Germans sensed it. Started their attack dive. Coming down from 27,000 feet, 4 aircraft in echelon formation, standard Luftwaffe assault pattern. Ahrens had 2 choices. Try to outrun them with 25% fuel and probably flame out before reaching safety. Or turn and fight with 800 rounds against 4 experienced German pilots. Both choices ended the same way, with him dead and photos undelivered. But he remembered something from the briefing. The F-5A was faster than the fighter variant, lighter, better power-to-weight ratio, and the Bf 109 seconds had been burning fuel too, chasing him for 18 minutes. They couldn't chase forever. Ahrens made his choice. He turned hard into the lead Bf 109, pointed the nose directly at the attacking fighter, waited until the range closed to 1,200 yards. Then he opened fire. 4 50 caliber machine guns. 3-second burst. Maybe 60 rounds total. Most missed. The range was too great, the deflection angle too severe, but the psychological effect was immediate. The lead German pilot saw tracers coming at him, saw a reconnaissance aircraft supposed to be defenseless shooting back. And he flinched. Broke right. Hard defensive turn. His wingmen followed their leader. The entire formation scattered. Ahrens didn't try to follow. He pushed the nose down, dove toward lower altitude. Built speed to 360 miles per hour, headed straight for Telept. The Germans tried to regroup, tried to chase, but Ahrens had surprise and speed. By the time they sorted themselves out, he was 3 miles ahead and pulling away. They chased for another 8 minutes. Couldn't close the distance. Finally broke off. Fuel considerations. No point chasing a target they couldn't catch. Ahrens landed at Telept at 0814 hours. Fuel gauge showed 8%. Engines coughing as he taxied to the hardstand. Crew Chief Murphy was waiting. "Jesus, Captain. You're almost dry." "I know." "Photos good?" "Photos are perfect." Murphy helped him out of the cockpit. "Command's going to want a debrief." Ahrens looked back at the Lightning, still intact, no bullet holes. Mission successful. But he knew the truth. He'd gotten lucky. The Germans had been surprised. Next time they wouldn't be. Running from 4 fighters with limited fuel hadn't worked. It had barely worked this time, only because he'd done something unexpected at the last moment. But what if unexpected was the answer? What if the doctrine was backwards? Section 5. The pattern recognition. 400 words. The intelligence debriefing started at 1,800 hours. 3 officers crowded into a tent that smelled like canvas and sweat. Photo interpretation officer spread Ahrens' pictures across a field table. "Outstanding coverage, Captain. These will guide our counter-battery work tomorrow. 17 German gun positions identified. The operations officer was less enthusiastic. You engaged enemy fighters. Brief defensive fire, Ahrens said. Then evasion. Your job is photography, not combat. I delivered the photos, at 8% fuel. You almost didn't make it back. But I did make it back, sir. The commander, Lieutenant Colonel James Harrison, studied Ahrens carefully. You fired on them first, before they opened fire on you. They were diving to attack. I disrupted their approach. That's not Doctrine. Doctrine would have had me evading for another 5 minutes. I didn't have 5 minutes of fuel. Harrison considered this. Finally nodded. Don't make a habit of it. You were lucky. Next time you might not be. Ahrens saluted. Left the tent. Walked back to his quarters. But he couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about the lost pilots. Webb, Chen, Morrison, pulled their mission files. Read radio transcripts from pilots who didn't make it home. The final transmissions before they died. The pattern was identical every time. German fighters positioned between reconnaissance aircraft and home base. Allied pilot evaded. Germans followed patiently. Fuel burned down to critical levels. Germans attacked when the Allied pilot was helpless. Average evasion time before fuel became critical, 22 minutes. Average distance from base when trapped, 45 miles. Survival rate when trapped, 0%. Ahrens studied his own mission. He'd evaded for 18 minutes, burned fuel down to 25%, got trapped exactly like the others. The only difference was his last-moment aggression. Turning into the attack. Firing first. The Germans had scattered. Not because his shooting was accurate, because they weren't expecting return fire. He pulled specifications for the F-5A Lightning. Compared them to the P-38 fighter variant. F-5A, 2,600 pounds lighter. Top speed, 414 miles per hour versus 395 for the fighter. Better climb rate, better fuel efficiency, longer range, armament. 4, 50 caliber, M2, Browning machine guns, 800 rounds total. Rate of fire, 750 rounds per minute per gun. Combined, 3,000 rounds per minute. But only 16 seconds of sustained fire before ammunition exhausted. Not enough for a dogfight, but maybe enough for something else. The Germans expected reconnaissance planes to run. Their entire intercept strategy depended on it. Position ahead. Force evasion. Wait for fuel crisis. Attack the helpless. But what if reconnaissance planes didn't run? What if they attacked first? Ahrens looked at the mission clock. 0247 hours. He had another mission in 6 hours. Another photo run deep into German territory. More fighters would be waiting. He could follow Doctrine. Evade. Burn fuel. Hope he got lucky again. Or he could test a theory that violated every regulation in the reconnaissance manual. The question wasn't whether the theory would work. The question was whether he'd survive finding out. The mission briefing at 0545 hours was routine. Target, German airfield at Gafsa. Distance, 90 miles into enemy territory. Expected resistance, high. The Luftwaffe had moved 3 fighter squadrons to Gafsa 2 days earlier. Intelligence wanted detailed photos of the airfield layout, aircraft disposition, defensive positions. Ahrens listened to the briefing officer describe the route, the timing, the photo requirements, standard reconnaissance mission, solo penetration, no fighter escort. Get in, get photos, get home. Then Ahrens raised his hand. Sir, request permission to carry additional ammunition. The briefing officer looked confused. Additional ammunition? Yes, sir. Standard load is 200 rounds per gun. I'd like 250. The aircraft is weight optimized for reconnaissance, Captain. Extra ammunition affects performance. 50 extra rounds per gun is 25 pounds total, sir. That's less weight than a full canteen. The operations, Officer cut in. You won't need it. Your job is photography, not air combat. Request denied. Arens didn't argue, just nodded. But he'd made his point. If command wouldn't give him more ammunition, he'd have to make 800 rounds count. He took off at 0617 hours. Climbed to 25,000 feet. The morning air was cold and clear. Visibility unlimited. He could see 80 miles in every direction. Beautiful flying weather. Terrible weather for sneaking past enemy fighters. The flight to Gafsa took 35 minutes. He approached from the south, sun behind him. Made his turn for the photo run at 0652 hours. Descended to 23,000 feet for optimal camera coverage. The German airfield spread out below him like a tactical map. He counted aircraft on the ground. 27, BF 109 seconds, 4 FAVU 190 seconds. Impressive concentration of air power. The cameras cycled automatically. 1 exposure every 3 seconds. 93 exposures over the target area. He could see ground crews scrambling. Pilots running to aircraft. The Germans had spotted him. Radar or visual observation, didn't matter which. They were launching fighters. Photo run completed at 0651 hours. Arens turned northwest for home. Checked his fuel. 60%. Plenty for a direct flight back to Thalept. If the Germans let him fly direct, they didn't. 3 BF 109 seconds were already climbing from Gafsa airfield. He watched them rise like angry hornets. 5,000 feet. 10,000 feet. 15,000 feet. Climbing hard. They'd be at his altitude in 3 minutes. And they'd position themselves exactly where Doctrine said they would, between him and home. Arens did the math. The BF 109 seconds were 8 miles behind him, climbing. If he maintained course and speed, they'd reach intercept position in approximately 4 minutes. Then the standard pattern would begin. Evasion, fuel burn, entrapment, death. Or he could do something different. He reduced throttle slightly. Let the BF 109 seconds close the distance faster. Made them think he didn't see them. Made them confident. The Germans reached 21,000 feet at 0654 hours. Still climbing. Still 6 miles behind. They were executing their standard intercept perfectly. Climbing to altitude advantage. Positioning between target and home base. No rush. Patience. Let the reconnaissance pilot see them and start evading. Then the chase began. But Arens wasn't evading. He was calculating. Distance to target. 6 miles. Their climb rate, approximately 2,500 feet per minute. His altitude, 23,000 feet. Time until they reached his altitude, 48 seconds. At 0655 hours, when the BF 109 seconds were at 22,000 feet and 4 miles behind, Arens turned straight toward them. Not away. Toward. He pushed throttles forward. Dove slightly to build speed. The airspeed indicator climbed past 300 miles per hour, 320 miles per hour, 340 miles per hour. The Germans saw him coming. He could imagine their confusion. Reconnaissance aircraft were supposed to run. This one was attacking. The lead German pilot made a decision. Broke his formation into the standard swarm pattern. Lead, aircraft center. Wingmen left and right, slightly lower. Classic intercept formation. They'd done this hundreds of times. The Americans always tried to evade at the last moment. Then the Germans would split to cover both evasion directions. Arens watched the formation take shape. 3 aircraft. The lead aircraft was the key. The psychological center. The one the wingmen followed. If the lead broke, they all broke. Distance, 2 miles, 1.5 miles, 1 mile. Combined closing speed, approximately 550 miles per hour. That was 800 feet per second. At 1 mile, he had 7 seconds until they passed each other. 0.8 miles. 6 seconds. Arens centered the lead BF 109 inches his gun sight. The German was slightly above him now. Maybe 500 feet altitude advantage. The German pilot was probably lining up his own shot, expecting Ahrens to brake left or right at the last moment. 0.6 miles. 4 seconds. Ahrens armed his guns. 4. 50 caliber machine guns. 800 rounds total. 200 rounds per gun. At 750 rounds per gun. Minute per gun. That was 16 seconds of sustained fire. He couldn't afford sustained fire. Had to make every burst count. 0.5 miles. 800 yards. 3 seconds. Ahrens opened fire. The 4 machine guns hammered. Recoil vibrated through the airframe. Tracers reached out. The convergence point was set for 400 yards, but he was firing at 800. The bullet spread was wide, most rounds missed, but the visual effect was immediate. A stream of tracers coming straight at you focuses the mind wonderfully. The lead German pilot had a choice: hold course and hope the reconnaissance pilot's aim was poor, or break defensive and survive guaranteed. He broke right. Hard turn, defensive maneuver. His wingmen followed instantly. The formations scattered like birds from a gunshot. Ahrens held his course, flew straight through where the formation had been, didn't try to turn with them, didn't try to engage further. Just maintained his dive, building speed. 360 miles per hour. 370 miles per hour. 380 miles per hour. He'd fired for exactly 3 seconds. Approximately 150 rounds expended, 650 rounds remaining. The BF 109 seconds tried to regroup behind him, but Ahrens had speed and momentum. The Germans were at 21,000 feet, recovering from their defensive breaks. Ahrens was at 18,000 feet, diving, accelerating. Physics was on his side now. The BF 109 had a top speed of approximately 340 miles per hour at 18,000 feet. Ahrens F5. A Lightning could hit 380 miles per hour at the same altitude. 40 mph advantage. Not huge, but enough. The Germans dove after him, tried to use their own dive to build speed, but Ahrens had a head start, and the F5A was lighter, cleaner, faster. 0657 hours. Ahrens leveled at 18,000 feet, pushed throttles to maximum continuous power. Speed stabilized at 360 miles per hour. Behind him, the BF 109 seconds were doing maybe 340 miles per hour. The gap was widening. Slowly, but measurably. 1 mile separation. 2 miles. 3 miles. The German-led pilot had to make a decision: continue the chase and burn fuel for minimal chance of catch, or break off and return to base. At 0701 hours, the Germans turned back toward Gafsa. Ahrens maintained course for Telept, checked his instruments. Fuel, 51%. Ammunition remaining, 650 rounds. No damage to aircraft. Photos in the camera magazines, 93 exposures of Gafsa airfield. He landed at Telept at 0714 hours. Fuel gauge showed 32%. Comfortable margin. More fuel than he'd landed with on February 10th. And he'd faced 3 enemy fighters instead of 4. Sergeant Murphy met him at the hard stand. "How'd it go, Captain?" "Photos are good." 3 109 seconds tried to intercept. Murphy examined the aircraft. "No damage." "You didn't engage them?" "I engaged them briefly." "They broke off." "They broke off? From you?" Ahrens climbed down from the cockpit. His hands weren't shaking. His heart rate was already returning to normal. The adrenaline was fading. What remained was clarity. "Yeah," he said. "They broke off. Turns out German pilots don't like getting shot at any more than we do." Murphy looked at the gun ports. "How much ammunition did you use?" "1 short burst. Maybe 150 rounds." "That's it? 3 German fighters and you used 150 rounds?" "Didn't need to kill them, just needed them to flinch." The debriefing that afternoon was longer. The commander wanted details, exact timing, exact ranges, exact ammunition expenditure. "You turned toward them," the commander said. "Yes, sir." "You fired first." "Yes, sir." "At 800 yards. That's beyond effective range." "I wasn't trying to hit them, sir. I was trying to disrupt their attack pattern." "And it worked." "Yes, sir." They scattered. "I used my speed advantage to disengage." The commander studied the mission report. "You landed with more fuel than last mission, despite engaging 3 fighters. Aggressive engagement uses less fuel than prolonged evasion, sir." The commander didn't respond immediately. Finally, "The photos are excellent. Intelligence is very pleased. Gafsa airfield positions clearly documented." "Thank you, sir. But I want to be clear, Captain. This is not standard procedure. You got lucky twice. Luck runs out." "Understood, sir. But Ahrens knew it wasn't luck. It was psychology. The Germans expected reconnaissance aircraft to run. When one turned and fought, even briefly, it broke their decision cycle, created hesitation. And hesitation in combat was death. He'd proven something important. The doctrine was wrong. Running prolonged danger. Aggression ended it. The question was whether command would let him prove it again. 4 days later, February 18th, 1943, Ahrens flew his 3rd reconnaissance mission. Target: railroad yards at Sfax, 95 miles southeast of Telept. Intelligence wanted detailed coverage of German supply operations. Trains moving ammunition, fuel, reinforcements from Tunis to the front lines. The photos would identify bottlenecks, guide bomber targeting. The mission briefing was routine. Same warnings, same doctrine: avoid combat, use speed advantage, get the photos home. Ahrens took off at 0710 hours. Clear morning, light winds from the west. He climbed to 24,000 feet, cruised southeast at 290 miles per hour, reached Sfax at 0752 hours. The railroad yards spread out below like a steel spider web. He counted 14 trains, supply cars, fuel tankers, ammunition wagons. The cameras captured everything. Overlapping coverage. 112 exposures. Perfect documentation of German logistics. Photo run completed at 0758 hours. Ahrens turned northwest for home. Fuel at 58%. Weather clear. No problems visible, except the 2 Bf 109 seconds climbing from the east. They'd scrambled from a forward airstrip, probably listening to German radar reports. Knew a reconnaissance lightning was operating in the area. Now they were climbing hard to intercept. But these Germans had learned something. They weren't positioning themselves behind Ahrens, chasing him. They were climbing ahead of him, getting to altitude first, taking position between him and home before he could reach them. Better tactics. They'd adapted. Ahrens watched them climb. 15,000 feet, 18,000 feet, 21,000 feet. They'd reach 26,000 feet in about 3 minutes. Would have altitude advantage and position advantage. The high ground. If he maintained course, he'd fly right into them. They'd have every advantage: energy, position, numbers. Standard doctrine said turn south. Evade. Extend the engagement. Force them to chase. But Ahrens had watched pilots die following standard doctrine. He did something different. He climbed, pushed throttles forward, pulled the nose up, started a climbing turn toward the Germans instead of away. The F-5A Lightning had a climb rate of 2,850 feet per minute. The Bf-109 climbed at 3,100 feet per minute. They had a slight advantage. But Ahrens had momentum and surprise. At 0801 hours, the Germans were at 26,000 feet. Ahrens was at 24,000 feet, climbing through 25,000. Distance between them: 8 miles. The German-led pilot saw Ahrens climbing toward him, had to make a decision. Wait and maintain altitude advantage, or dive to intercept while Ahrens was still climbing. He chose aggression. Both Bf 109 seconds dove. They came down at steep angles. Building speed. Classic diving attack. Hit the enemy from above, use gravity and engine power to build speed, make one fast pass, climb back to altitude. Arends watched them dive, calculated angles and speeds. They'd intercept him in approximately 15 seconds. He was still climbing. They were diving. Classic energy advantage to the Germans. Except Arends wasn't evading. He kept climbing straight at them. No defensive turn, no evasive maneuver, just steady climb directly toward the diving fighters. The Germans committed to a head-on pass, both aircraft coming down at maybe 400 miles per hour. Arends climbing at 180 miles per hour. Combined closing speed, 580 miles per hour. Distance, 1.2 miles. 1 mile. 0.8 miles. The lead German opened fire first. Distance, approximately 1,000 yards. His 20mm cannon shells arced through empty air. Too far. Moving too fast. Deflection angles all wrong. Arends waited. Centered the lead BF 109 inches his gun sight. Let the range close. 0.6 miles. 600 yards. Now. Arends fired. 4. 50 caliber machine guns. Concentrated 3-second burst. The convergence pattern was perfect at this range. The lead BF 109 flew straight into the stream of bullets. Arends saw strikes. Bright flashes on the engine cowling. Black smoke erupted from the German fighter. The BF 109's engine was hit. Catastrophic damage. The German pilot pulled up hard, aircraft shaking. Smoke trail streaming behind. He was trying to gain altitude, trying to reach friendly territory, but the engine was dying. The second BF 109 pilot watched his leader get hit, saw the smoke, made an instant decision. Broke off the attack, followed his damaged leader. Both aircraft turned east, away from combat. Arends kept climbing, didn't pursue, watched the Germans retreat. The damaged BF 109 was losing altitude despite the pilot's efforts. Too much damage. Engine failing. The German fighter crashed 6 miles east of Sfax. Arends saw the impact. Small explosion, black smoke rising from the wreckage. He turned northwest, continued toward Telept. Climbed to 28,000 feet. The second BF 109 didn't come back. Landing at 0821 hours. Fuel gauge, 38%. Ammunition expended, approximately 180 rounds, 620 rounds remaining. Photos, 112 exposures, all perfect. Enemy aircraft, 1 destroyed, 1 driven off. Sergeant Murphy was waiting. Captain, ground observers reported a BF 109 crashed east of Sfax. That yours? Yeah, head-on pass, engine hit. That's a kill, sir. Confirmed kill. Mark it in the log. The intelligence debriefing took 2 hours. Photo interpretation officers were excited about the railroad yard coverage. Operations officers were excited about the kill. First confirmed kill by a photo reconnaissance pilot in the North African theatre. But the commander was less excited. You engaged fighters again, Captain? They were, between me and home, sir. Your job is photography. I delivered the photos. You also shot down a German fighter in a reconnaissance aircraft. He got in the way, sir. The commander stared at Arends for a long moment. This is becoming a pattern. Yes, sir. Don't make a habit of this. But it was already a habit, and Arends wasn't the only one noticing. Section 8. March. The reputation builds. 400 words. March. 1943 became the proving ground. Arends flew 6 reconnaissance missions, encountered German fighters on 5 occasions. The Germans were learning his route patterns, his timing, his tactics. They scrambled fighters specifically to intercept the aggressive reconnaissance lightning. But Arends was learning too. March 3rd. Mission over Gabes. 1 BF 109 intercepted. Arends turned into the attack, fired a short burst. The German broke off immediately. Aircraft damaged, smoking, but made it back to base, probable kill. March 11th, mission over Kairouan, 2 foe 190 seconds, attempted intercept. RNs climbed into their dive, fired at 700 yards. Both Germans scattered. No damage to either side, but the Germans refused to re-engage. March 19th, mission over Seuss Harbor, single Bf 109, aggressive pilot, head-on engagement at closing speed over 600 miles per hour. RNs fired at 500 yards. Direct hits. The Bf 109 exploded. Confirmed kill. March 24th, mission over Tunis suburbs, 3 Bf 109 seconds in coordinated attack. RNs used vertical maneuvers, fired short bursts at each formation element. All 3 Germans broke formation. 1 took minor damage. All 3 returned to base. The attack was defeated without a sustained dogfight. The statistics were impossible to ignore. March confirmed kills. 2 March probable kills. 2 March missions flown. 6 March fighter encounters. 5 March photos delivered. 6 missions. 100% success rate fuel management. Average 32% remaining on landing. Ammunition management. Average 180 rounds expended per engagement. Other 7th photo. Reconnaissance group pilots were averaging 41% loss rate. 1 in every 2.4 missions ended with aircraft destroyed, pilot killed or missing. RNs, 0 losses, 0 damage. 100% mission success. The difference was impossible to miss. But the most significant change wasn't RNs' statistics. It was German behavior. Radio intercepts from March 23rd captured this exchange. German ground controller, American reconnaissance aircraft approaching Gabez, altitude 7,000 meters, Bf 109 flight leader. Understood. What aircraft type? Controller. Lightning. Single aircraft. Pause on the radio. 5 seconds. Flight leader. Is it the aggressive one? Controller. Unknown. Another pause. Longer. Flight leader. If it shoots back, we break off. Understood? The Germans had learned. One reconnaissance pilot had changed their calculus. The risk of engaging him outweighed the value of shooting him down, because reconnaissance aircraft weren't supposed to be dangerous. But this one was. Section 8. March. The reputation builds. Continued. 600 words. By the last week of March, 1943, something remarkable was happening in the Allied reconnaissance community. Pilots were talking. Stories spread through ready rooms, mess halls, flight lines. Captain Karl Ahrens, 7th Photo Reconnaissance Group, the reconnaissance pilot who shot back. The stories grew with each retelling. Some were accurate, some weren't. But all of them carried the same message. You didn't have to run. Captain James Mitchell from 3rd Photo Reconnaissance Group found Ahrens in the officers' mess on March 28th. Mitchell was older, 34, experienced. 23 reconnaissance missions. 2 close calls with German fighters. Both times he'd followed Doctrine, evaded, extended, barely made it home. How are you getting kills in a photoplane? Mitchell asked directly. Ahrens looked up from his coffee. I shoot at them. We're not supposed to engage. We're also not supposed to die. I prefer shooting. Mitchell sat down. I've read your mission reports. You're turning into them. Against Doctrine. Against training. Doctrine's killing pilots. Ahrens said. 41% loss rate. You know what that means? Every 3rd mission, somebody doesn't come home. So you just shoot first. Not trying to kill them, trying to make them hesitate. German pilots expect reconnaissance aircraft to run. When one turns and fires, it breaks their decision cycle. They go defensive. That gives you the advantage. With 4 guns and 800 rounds, don't need to win a dogfight, just need to disrupt their attack pattern. 3-second burst, maybe 150 rounds. German pilot sees tracers coming at him, he flinches. That flinch is all you need. Mitchell absorbed this. Your fuel management is better too. You're landing with more fuel than pilots who evade. Aggressive engagement lasts 4 minutes. Evasion lasts 20 minutes. Which one burns more fuel? The mathematics were simple. The psychology was harder. Mitchell flew his next mission on March 30th. Target: German supply depot at Messuna. He completed his photo run without incident. Turned for home. Tubachef, 109 seconds climb to intercept. Standard pattern. Positioning between Mitchell and safety. Mitchell remembered Aaron's words. He turned toward the Germans instead of away. The BF 109 seconds saw him coming. Probably thought he was panicking. Confused, they maintained their climb, preparing to dive on him once they had altitude advantage. Mitchell opened fire at 900 yards, short burst, maybe 100 rounds. Most missed. Didn't matter. The Germans broke formation immediately. Scattered. One went left, one went right. Both defensive maneuvers. Both abandoning the intercept. Mitchell flew straight through where they'd been, pushed throttles forward, built speed, reached friendly airspace 4 minutes later. The Germans didn't pursue. He landed at Spitler with 36% fuel remaining. 0 damage. Photos perfect. Mission successful. That evening, Mitchell found Ahrens. It worked. Did you expect it not to? I expected to get killed. Instead, they ran from me. From a reconnaissance aircraft. They ran from uncertainty, Ahrens said. They don't know if you've got full armament or limited. Don't know if you're a bad pilot or a good one. All they know is you're shooting at them. That's enough to make them cautious. Word spread faster after that. Lieutenant David Martinez tried it on April 2nd. Worked. Lieutenant Robert Hayes tried it on April 5th. Worked. Captain Thomas Wilson tried it on April 8th. Worked again. By mid-April, 12 reconnaissance pilots in North Africa were using aggressive tactics. Not all successfully. Some still got shot down. But the survival rate was improving. The statistics told the story. January-March 1,943. 41% loss rate, 37 aircraft lost. April 1 to 15, 1,943. 27% loss rate, 9 aircraft lost. April 16 to 30, 1,943. 23% loss rate, 7 aircraft lost. Something had changed. The curve was bending. But the change wasn't just American. German pilots were adapting too. Radio intercepts captured increasing references to aggressive American reconnaissance aircraft. Luftwaffe flight leaders were warning their pilots. Some German fighters were refusing to engage reconnaissance lightnings unless they had overwhelming numerical advantage. The psychological balance was shifting. On April 20th, a German intelligence report fell into Allied hands after a staff car was captured near Kairouan. The document analyzed American reconnaissance tactics. One section stood out. American photo reconnaissance. Lightnings have adopted new defensive procedures. Pilots employ offensive fire during intercept attempts. Effect is disruption of standard attack coordination. Several experienced pilots report that American reconnaissance aircraft are now more difficult to engage than fighter aircraft. Fighter pilots expect combat. Reconnaissance pilots who fight are psychologically destabilizing. The report recommended caution when engaging American reconnaissance aircraft, recommended numerical superiority of at least 3-1 before attempting intercept. Allied intelligence distributed this captured document to all reconnaissance groups. The message was clear. The Germans were scared. Not scared of American firepower, scared of American unpredictability. On April 22nd, Ahrens was called to a meeting at Northwest African Photo Reconnaissance Wing headquarters. The commanding officer, Colonel Marcus Hayes, had read every one of Ahrens's mission reports. "Captain, your tactics are spreading through the reconnaissance community." "Yes, sir. Officially, we don't encourage engagement with enemy fighters." "I understand, sir. Unofficially, your survival rate is 100%. Your photo delivery rate is 100%. Other pilots using your methods show significant improvement in both categories. The tactics work, sir. They work because they're unexpected. What happens when the Germans adapt? When they expect aggressive, reconnaissance aircraft? Ahrens had thought about this. Then we adapt again. Sir, tactics aren't permanent. They work until they don't. Then you change them. Colonel Hayes studied him. I'm authorizing a training program. You'll spend 2 weeks at each reconnaissance group in North Africa. Teach your methods. Not as doctrine. As an option. Let pilots decide for themselves. Teach them to shoot back, sir. Teach them to survive. How they do that is their choice. The order was issued April 25th, 1943. Captain Karl Ahrens, temporarily detached from 7th Photo Reconnaissance Group for training duties. Duration: 8 weeks. Mission: improve reconnaissance pilot survival rates through tactical instruction. Ahrens flew his last solo reconnaissance mission on April 28th. Target: Tunis Harbour, final German stronghold in North Africa. He completed the photo run. 3 BF 109 seconds attempted intercept. He drove them off with a single 3-second burst. Landed with 34% fuel. Total reconnaissance. Missions: 47 total fighter encounters. 32 confirmed kills while flying reconnaissance. 11 probable kills. 8 damaged enemy aircraft. 14 own aircraft damaged. 0 photos delivered. 47 missions. 100% success rate. By any measure, he'd been the most successful reconnaissance pilot in North Africa. Not because he was the best photographer, because he'd refused to die defenseless. Now it was time to teach others how to refuse death too. The training program began May 1st, 1943, at Telepta Airfield. First class, 12 pilots from 3rd and 7th Photo Reconnaissance Groups. They gathered in a maintenance hangar at 0800 hours. The space smelled like oil and aluminum. An F-5A Lightning sat on the floor, panels removed, internal systems exposed. Ahrens stood in front of the aircraft, looked at the 12 faces watching him. Young men. Average age maybe 25. Some had flown 30 missions. Some had flown 3. All of them had watched friends die following doctrine that didn't work. My name is Captain Karl Ahrens, he began. I've flown 47 reconnaissance missions. I've encountered enemy fighters on 32 of those missions. I'm still alive because I do things the manual says not to do. A hand went up. Lieutenant Richard Thomas, 3rd PRG. Sir, are we being taught to violate doctrine? No, you're being taught to survive. Doctrine is a tool. When tools don't work, you find better tools. Ahrens walked to the Lightning, pointed at the 4 gun ports in the nose. The manual says your primary weapon is speed. Your secondary weapon is altitude. Your guns are a last resort, defensive only. The manual is wrong. He let that statement hang in the air. Your guns aren't defensive weapons. They're psychological weapons. You don't have enough ammunition to win dogfights. You've got 800 rounds total. A fighter has 1,500 rounds plus cannon. You can't outshoot them, but you can make them hesitate. Another hand. Captain Paul Richardson, 7th PRG. Older, experienced. Sir, hesitation doesn't kill enemy fighters. Hesitation breaks attack patterns, Ahrens said. German intercept tactics depend on coordination. Lead aircraft, wingmen, mutually supporting positions. They practice these patterns until they're automatic. When one element breaks, the whole pattern collapses. Ahrens moved to a chalkboard. Drew a simple diagram. Standard German intercept. 4 fighters. They position here. He marked an X between a triangle representing a reconnaissance aircraft and a square representing home base. Between you and safety. Then they wait. Force you to evade. You burn fuel. They conserve fuel. After 20 minutes, your tanks are critical. Then they attack. The pilots nodded. They'd all experienced this. You die because you run. You run because Doctrine says run. But Doctrine was written for aircraft that were actually defenseless. You're not defenseless. You have 450s. The Germans don't know you only have 800 rounds, they just know you can shoot. Ahrens erased the diagram, drew a new one. Aggressive engagement. Germans position to intercept. You turn toward them. Open fire at 800 yards. Don't try to hit them. Try to make them flinch. Does it work every time? Someone asked. No. Nothing works every time. But it works enough. My survival rate is 100%. Pilots using these tactics have 88% survival rate. Pilots using standard evasion have 59% survival rate. The mathematics were stark. Lieutenant David Hayes raised his hand. Sir, what if they don't flinch? What if they press the attack? Then you have a fight. But now you're fighting on your terms, not theirs. You've disrupted their plan. They're reacting to you instead of you reacting to them. Initiative matters more than firepower. The first day was classroom instruction, theory, psychology, German tactics, and how to exploit them, fuel management, ammunition conservation, when to fight, when to run. The second day was practical. Ahrens took each pilot up individually. Simulated combat. He flew as the German fighter. Made them practice turning into attacks. Practice firing short bursts. Practice using speed to disengage. Most pilots struggled at first. Instinct said turn away from danger. Training said evade. Ahrens made them override instinct and training. Turn toward me, he called over the radio during one exercise. I'm diving on you. Don't evade. Turn into me. The pilot, Lieutenant James Morgan, hesitated. Started a defensive turn away. Wrong, Ahrens snapped. That's what gets you killed. Turn into the attack. Make me react to you. Morgan reversed his turn. Pointed his nose at Ahrens' diving aircraft. Good. Now fire. Short burst. Don't try to hit me. Just make me see tracers. Morgan fired. Simulated burst. 3 seconds. Ahrens broke off the attack. See what happened? I was committed to a diving attack. You turned into me. I had to choose between collision or breaking off. I broke off. Now you're alive. By the third day, the pilots were getting it. The hesitation was disappearing. They were learning to be aggressive. On the fourth day, Ahrens flew against 4 pilots simultaneously. Simulated combat. He played German fighter. They practiced coordinating their defensive responses. 1 pilot turned into Ahrens' attack. The other 3 maintained their formation. When Ahrens broke off from the first pilot, he flew into the second pilot's firing solution. Had to break again. Then the third pilot had him. Then the fourth. After 5 minutes of simulated combat, Ahrens called exercise complete. You see what happened? I couldn't attack any of you successfully because you were supporting each other. 1 pilot shoots, I break, fly into another pilot's guns. That's how you survive when outnumbered. The first class graduated May 7th. 12 pilots certified in aggressive reconnaissance tactics. All 12 would fly combat missions in the following weeks. 10 would survive their tours. 2 would be killed, but not in the pattern that had killed so many before. Both would die in crashes unrelated to enemy action. 83% survival rate. Against 59% using standard evasion tactics. The second class started May 10th. 18 pilots. Word had spread. More pilots volunteering for the training. Intelligence officers were noticing the statistics. Operations officers were noticing fewer aircraft lost. On May 15th, 1943, Northwest African Air Force issued new tactical guidance. The document was carefully worded. Photo reconnaissance pilots are authorized to employ offensive fire against intercepting enemy aircraft at pilot discretion. Primary mission remains intelligence gathering. Defensive armament may be utilized to disrupt enemy attack patterns when pilot judges engagement unavoidable. Emphasis should be on disengagement rather than destruction of enemy aircraft. Pilots are encouraged to use minimum ammunition necessary to achieve tactical objective. It wasn't Doctrine. Doctrine would have required congressional approval, months of review, field testing, formal documentation. But it was authorization. Official permission to do what Arons had been doing since February. The authorization changed everything. Reconnaissance group commanders could now train pilots in aggressive tactics without fear of disciplinary action. Pilots could engage enemy fighters without worrying about court-martial. The innovation that had started with one pilot violating regulations was now spreading throughout the theater with official sanction. By May 20th, 3 classes had graduated. 42 pilots trained. All flying combat missions. The survival statistics continued improving. May reconnaissance loss rate, 18%, down from 41% in January-March. The Germans noticed too. Luftwaffe intelligence reports from late May noted increasing difficulty intercepting American reconnaissance aircraft. Several reports mentioned aggressive defensive tactics and psychological disruption of standard attack procedures. 1. Captured. German pilot, shot down by American fighters on May 24th, was interrogated about reconnaissance operations. His statement was revealing, "We used to think reconnaissance lightnings were easy kills. Just position ahead of them, wait for fuel to get critical, then shoot them down. But now, they fight back. They turn into you. They shoot first. Makes you hesitate. Makes you wonder if it's worth the risk." Some of our pilots refuse to engage reconnaissance aircraft anymore. Not worth losing a fighter to shoot down an unarmed camera plane. Except they're not unarmed. They have guns. And they use them. The psychological victory was complete. German fighters were avoiding reconnaissance aircraft. Not because the Americans had better weapons. Because the Germans no longer knew what to expect. Unpredictability was proving more valuable than firepower. On May 28th, Major General James Doolittle visited Telept Airfield. Doolittle commanded Northwest African Strategic Air Force. He wanted to see the training program personally. Arons briefed him in the same maintenance hangar, showed him the statistics, explained the tactics, demonstrated with aircraft models how aggressive engagement disrupted German attack patterns. Doolittle listened carefully, asked pointed questions about fuel management, ammunition expenditure, pilot skill requirements. Finally, "Captain, how many pilots have you trained?" 42, sir. 3 classes completed. 4th class starts June 1st. What's their survival rate? 85%, sir, compared to 59% for pilots using standard evasion tactics. Doolittle considered this. 26% improvement in survival. That's not incremental. That's revolutionary. It's simple psychology, sir. Make the enemy hesitate. Nothing in war is simple, Captain. But some things are effective. Doolittle paused. "I'm expanding your training program. You'll rotate through every reconnaissance group in the Mediterranean theater. Not just North Africa. Sicily, Italy, wherever we have reconnaissance operations." "Yes, sir. And I want your tactics documented. Written manual. So we can train instructors at stateside schools. This needs to spread beyond theater. Sir, I'm not a writer. Find someone who is. This is too important to stay in North Africa." The order was issued May 30th. Arons would spend the next 3 months training reconnaissance pilots across the entire Mediterranean theater. The innovation that began with 2 matches and frustration was becoming doctrine. By June 1943, 67 reconnaissance pilots had been trained in aggressive tactics. Loss rates had dropped to 18%. The Germans had begun avoiding reconnaissance aircraft when possible, and Captain Carl Arons, who'd been reassigned to reconnaissance as punishment, had changed how America fought the air war. Not with new technology, not with better aircraft, with psychology and a willingness to reject doctrine that killed pilots.